What's up YouTube? My name's Cameron Doherty here with another tech video, and welcome to the beautiful island of Maui, Hawaii, and to my rental car. Now you might be wondering how I rented a Tesla for my trip to Maui, and that's through an app called Turo. Definitely look it up, awesome app. It's basically an Airbnb, but for cars. So this Tesla belongs to somebody on the island, they rent it out. And so I was able to come and utilize it during my 5-day trip. And this is kind of a recap about that and something that you might consider to use for your vacation to Hawaii. So picking up the car was super easy. With a Tesla, obviously, you can do everything through your phone. So the owner was able to unlock it remotely when I got to the car. And then from there, he had the key waiting. And I was able to use that during my trip. Now this specific Tesla, you'll notice, has a lot of customization to it. You can notice the red seats, which I believe are custom. There's some sun shields in the top and rear window. Obviously in Hawaii, you get a lot of sun, so that's just designed to block a little bit out and to help make it not so crazy hot in the car. Otherwise, there is some tints on the windows, so if you see it being slightly darker or if you see some slight blur to it, that would be why. So there is again some work done here in order to minimize the amount of sun that's getting in. Other than that, we've got a standard Tesla Model 3. I believe this would be the standard range. It only goes up to about 200-ish. And we were able to utilize almost all of that on a really long trip that I'll talk about later. So the first thing is I recorded a video a couple days prior, my first full day with the car, with my first impressions of driving it. So I'm going to jump to that and then come back and give you my synopsis now at the end of 5 days. All right, so here we are in the Tesla rental car. This is the Tesla Model 3. We picked this up yesterday, so this is still largely going to be first impressions as far as how the driving is and what it feels like. And the first thing I'll say is that there's a couple parts that feel natural, and there's a couple parts that feel really unnatural. And so overall, the seat, the feel, where you can see, I like to have my seat raised up a little bit. There was great adjustability. All of that feels the way that it should. It feels pretty natural. It feels very at home. Where it starts to depart from the norm, if you're not used to electric vehicles, is when we start talking about the acceleration and then the regenerative braking. And so the acceleration is absolutely crazy. You know, very little throttle goes a long way. And it really makes it a unique experience if you've never been in one before. This is my first time in a Tesla where I've been able to drive it. I was in once as an Uber, which was funny, but obviously that Uber driver is not stepping on the gas like you can when you're driving it yourself. And so that, and then the regenerative braking is something that is really unique. So when you take your foot off the gas, you automatically have a situation where it will slow the car down in an effort to build back energy. And so if you drive like I do, I think back to when I was in driving school as like a 16-year-old kid, and one of the first things that I was told is just a safety measure by the instructor was, if you ever see brake lights in front of you, take your foot off the gas. And that in a normal gas car, that means that you're going to wind up just coasting and maintaining your speed for the most part, unless you're going up a big hill or something like that. But for the most part, it keeps everything the same. Quite the contrary when we're talking about a Tesla here, where as soon as I take off the gas, you just wind up with this lag, this slowdown. And it's really different because you wind up not having to use the brake as much, but you need to change your driving style, or else it's just really herky-jerky and you're all over the place. So like, as an example, you know, I'm going 30 miles per hour right now. I have it on the low regenerative braking setting, but still, if I let off the gas, it brings you forward, and it's as if you're putting on a fairly heavy brake. And you can change it in the settings between low and normal, I believe were the two options, and initially it was set to normal, and it was really aggressive to the point where from a safety perspective of the people behind me, I got concerned that, hey, if I'm all of a sudden looking like I'm slamming on the brakes, even though my brake lights aren't going to come on just because it's the regenerative braking, that could be unsafe because somebody might wind up rear-ending me. So I didn't want that because of the learning curve. I wanted to start with low so that I didn't wind up having anything sudden happening that would potentially endanger people around me. Overall, though, I think it's a natural feel. You know, you're in this model. You still have the standard stalks here. One of them for your drive, reverse, neutral, etc. One of them around blinkers and things like that. Otherwise, everything basically is managed with this touch screen, which makes for something pretty crazy. Let's see some of that acceleration here now as we enter this highway. So that took us to about almost 50 miles per hour in what feels like no time at all. Throws you back in your seat. It is such a thrill. I still don't feel like I've really let it loose. We are on a small island here in Maui. I want to be respectful to the speed limits and the locals and all of that. So trying to keep it within reason, but every once in a while, you know, you're turning onto a faster road like that and you got a second where you can get up to speed. Wow, it is something like I've never felt before, and really makes me want to have a car like this of my own so that I can, you know, take people around and do exciting things like that. How about these amazing Maui views? If you want to talk about how to experience the island, how to experience a trip like this, I mean, you got the beautiful Tesla here, you're cruising around, what could be better than this? Other kind of creature comforts, if you're renting one of these and you've never used it before, you know, like I said, there's certain things you're going to pick up on that are going to be simple. The driving stalks, the mirrors have physical buttons over here, but then we've got the unusual side of things, such as the button here, which is how you open up the door. And so when you push that, it's actually an electronic door latch that will unlatch the door and lower the window slightly to break the seal so that you can open it. It's a little bit strange to get used to, and if you're looking, you know, for the first time, like, okay, where is the handle? How do I get out of here? It's confusing if you don't notice that button. Navigating the touchscreen is intuitive in certain instances, and not intuitive in other instances. So, you know, you can see the temperature set here and you can easily adjust that. You can pop open this menu to adjust where the air is flowing. These are things that you'll see in car reviews, and that if you've watched videos about Tesla, you'll understand those natural things. If you want to go auto air, let it control versus the normal adjustments of your controlling the speed manually, you can do so. But then there's all sorts of vehicle-specific settings and things like that, which, like I mentioned, the regenerative braking, that's something that you have control over it, and if you're renting the car and you've never touched it before, it can be intimidating to want to jump into some of these controls. I kind of poked around with some of the menus, but I'm certainly not an expert. As I mentioned, this is my second day with the car. Basically, the only reason why I didn't film my initial first impressions is because I picked it up at night. So this is the first time we've had daylight to be able to record this, and I didn't want to have absolutely horrible video quality when I was doing this. But so going through these menus is an unusual one and can be confusing. You know, this is where I was talking about. You have different acceleration modes. In this particular model, it's just chill and standard. You don't have any of the ludicrous modes or anything like that. You can control the steering of whether you want it to be more comfortable, standard, or in a sport steering mode. And then that regenerative braking that I mentioned was a different one. So here we are coming to a stop. I've not touched the brakes. I'm coming all the way down, 30, 25, 20. It's taking me down. Still have not touched it. 15, 10, 9, 8, 7. So it looks like it's going to take me to about 5. And now it sticks at 5. No, 4. Okay, but it's coasting me in at this. Still have not touched the brakes. And so this is just the creep mode that it's in. That got me down as low as 3 miles per hour. The light turned green, and now I'm back to going. So Definitely a different driving experience. I've heard it referred to as 1 foot driving, and I totally agree with that. I actually forgot when I first got into the car that I had heard that, and then all of a sudden that regenerative braking kicked in, and I went, oh my gosh, like I need to drive this car differently than I do my car at home. For context, at home I drive a 2016 Honda Accord, pretty basic car. Average comfort, not a luxury car, but not anything too simple. Like it's just kind of right in the middle of the road, $25,000 car, something like that. And I think overall the internal comfort things are comparable. So it's similar to what you'll get in this vehicle. You've obviously got bonuses here of having the front as well as the trunk. You've got more storage in here with the ways that the underbelly of the car are different. So you've got cup holders here. You've got a big storage that goes down shockingly deep. 2 built-in cell phone chargers, wireless chargers here. So a lot of really interesting things to consider in the interior. But overall, just it feels like a natural fit, and it picks up pretty easily with just those specific things about Tesla that make it unique and make it a little bit different as you're getting used to it. But yeah, that's kind of my overall first impressions of driving the car. We're going to take a look deeper into the insides, and we'll give a little tour once we get stopped. All right, so now looking back 5 days later, these are kind of the highlights of what I thought of the car. Having some time to think about it, having some more time driving it, and also some things that I think you would need to consider if you want to do this for your trip. The first thing is, this is the key. So it fits in your wallet. It's just like a credit card. And in order to unlock the car, lock the car, or start the car, this is what you're going to use. So right on the A-frame, right on the other side here, that's where you tap this against the side. That will unlock the doors if it's locked, and it'll lock the doors if it's unlocked. In order to use the door handles, simply press on the large part of the handle, and then the smaller part will pop open, and you can pull that in order to unlatch the door. And then once you're in, the first question you might have is, how the heck do I start the car? And so basically all you got to do is push on the brake pedal. And it's a little bit confusing because if you've just gotten in the car, it'll start right up. If not, it'll yell at you and ask you to use the key. In that case, there is a spot right here just underneath the center console, and you just place the key there and then press the brake pedal, and that will start the car up. From there, we take a look at the steering wheel. Now, there's a couple things here to call out that would be important if you've never been in a Tesla before and you're picking one up as your rental. The first thing would be the right stalk here, and this is how you shift gears. And so you're going to push up in order to go into reverse, down to go into drive, and there's a little button on the side to push in order to go into park. And so overall, that took a little bit of getting used to, rather than having either something that you pull down on or something that you shift here. But it's not that far out of the ordinary, and so it was pretty easy to pick up. The blinkers are basically the same as always. You can tap them to have just a couple blinks. You can hold it, or you can press it hard past a kind of click point, and then that will keep them on until you make your turn. Hidden over on this same stalk as the blinkers is your wiper fluid. So there's actually a button, just like the park button, on the side that you'll use if you want to use your wiper fluid in order to clean off your windshield. From there, on the front of the steering wheel, you have a volume knob on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, I believe is just used if you're using cruise control. And so in order to enable cruise control, you double tap down on the right stalk here while you're driving, and that will lock your speed. And then from there, you can adjust up and down what number you want to go on your speed by turning this up and down. Otherwise, this particular car doesn't have any of the autopilot functionality, so there's no automatic lane keeping or anything like that. Otherwise, it's just a basic car with a normal cruise control in that sense. So next we'll take a look at the touch screen and do a little bit of a deep dive here. So as you can see, this is what you're going to see when you're charging the car. Right now we've got it plugged in, grabbing a little bit of charge before heading to the airport. And so in this case, you can see the current status of the battery, and you can see what its full capacity is. You see how quickly it's charging, different details like that. One important note is your limit here. It's not good for Teslas to charge 100% all the time because it'll degrade the battery quicker. It's just like your cell phone, where if you charge it fully, it's not going to be quite as good, and it also takes a lot more energy to get that last little bit. So by clicking that set limit, you can adjust where you want the maximum amount to charge to. And so normal day to day, my guess is your car owner is going to have it set around 90% or so. If you were going to do a long trip, you can push it to 100%. Otherwise, I would say just leave this alone and keep it with how the driver wanted it to be set. Otherwise, from there, it will give you how much time is remaining to get to full charge. So whatever the limit is set to, this will indicate how much time it'll take to get there. There's some other features that I'm going to not take a look at. I'm going to focus in on just what is most important for you as a new user. So under the driving settings, I touched on this a little bit while I was driving, but there's a lot of details here. There's exterior lights, setting them to auto or turning them on or off. You can adjust your side mirrors here, and that uses the same knob as your volume on the left-hand side of the steering wheel in order to move it up, down, left, and right. And so it's a little bit different than having the physical buttons that you might be used to on a car. But overall, I would say it's really intuitive to a beginner to look at all of this and kind of learn how to do the basic functions of a normal car. I'm not going to go into all the features here, but just jump around a little bit. So you can see within the music here, we can pull this up. It is connected to my iPhone. We have radio stations. You can go to Spotify. You can stream directly from your phone using Bluetooth. All the standard functionality of a radio there. This button here allows you to see the rear view and side cameras. This will enable automatically when you go into reverse. And actually, one other awesome feature about going into reverse is that your side mirrors will actually angle down to give you a better view of where the lines are. So you really get a full encompassing look anytime you're going in reverse. The next one here is your windshield wipers. And this is a really unusual one if you've never seen a Tesla before, because you're probably expecting that you'd have a stalk on your steering wheel in order to use the windshield wipers. But instead, you're going to use this, turn it on. You can set it to various speeds or or auto. And it's a little bit unusual. If you get caught in the rain the first time, you're going to be frantically saying, where is that darn touch icon? Because generally, one of the first things I always look for in a rental car is, where are the windshield wipers? How do I use them? Because the last thing you want is to be stuck in the rain and not be able to see. So in this case, it's within reach, and you can just tap that and tap it on in order to enable it. The last thing to call out here would be the climate settings. And this is another one where definitely used to having physical buttons at the bottom to use, but overall it's fairly intuitive. You have auto, or you can specifically set the fan speed if you would rather have that. So now auto turns off and I can adjust exactly what speed of the fan I want. AC on off. There's a couple modes here to keep, if you've got a dog in the car, to keep it set to a temperature as they're here to keep them safe. And then the most interesting thing and the most unusual thing for a newcomer would be how you set specifically the fans. And so using the touch screen here, you get to control exactly where the fans are going to blow, rather than having the adjustment be on the car itself. And so rather than having little vents where you adjust or close, you control that right from here, which is a little bit weird to get used to, but really works easily and simply and doesn't take much time to master. All right, so other things about the car, your overall center console here, you have a nice bit of storage in this spot here. You can get down below for some additional storage, basic kind of center console aspect. As I mentioned, this is where you're going to put the key if you need to start the car. A couple cup holders, another awesome storage where you can simply tap to open it up. This goes way deep. It was shockingly deep. You can simply close it like that. And then at the front here are 2 wireless phone chargers. And so keep in mind that anytime you're using them, you're going to be draining your battery, but they are 2 different wireless chargers with the Qi standard in order to charge your phone on the go. The only other thing to talk about would be the overall storage. And so there is both a trunk in the back as well as a front trunk, which is commonly referred to as the frunk. And you'll see that here, how you can open both of those. So right now they're both closed. And if you want to open them, all it takes is a simple tap to open. And despite the fact that it shows the lift gate entirely up, the Model 3 actually does not have a power lift gate. So all you're going to get is just unlatched. From there, you have to lift it up manually. The same thing with the frunk. For our use, we each had a suitcase, a duffel bag, and a backpack. and we were able to pretty comfortably fit those in the trunk for our purposes. And so, you know, you might get a little bit tight if you've got a third or a fourth person. We were on an 11-day trip for context, and we were able to fit it just fine. We didn't utilize the frunk except for when we were going around on different trips. It is nice because it's, you know, it's something you could just rinse out if needed. And so it's good for tossing in a wet bathing suit, something like that, as you're going around Hawaii. All right, and the last thing to talk about is charging. And this is going to be probably the most challenging for somebody that is just using a Tesla for the first time and never lived with an electric car. You may have heard the term range anxiety, and that is very real. You can see the number right on the touch screen here, which shows you the estimation of how many miles you have left. And this is something that you will grow to really take care and look at, because unlike with a gas car where you can simply stop at a fueling station and fill up whenever you need to, the electric car charging stations take longer, and they're also fewer and far between. Now, when it comes to charging your Tesla in Hawaii, on Maui specifically, there are no Tesla superchargers as of the time of filming. I think I read that there were some in the works a little bit, but for right now, you don't have any options for a supercharger. There are some Tesla destination chargers. Most of those are held in specific resorts, and most of those resorts don't want you to use them unless you are a guest staying there. So if you're planning on renting one of these through Turo, make sure you take a look at your resort, see if they've got something available, or even look for a resort specifically that has one if you want to take advantage of it. Otherwise, our resort did not have a Tesla destination charger, but had a standard electric car charger. And in those cases, you do need to have an adapter. So make sure that whatever car you get has the specific adapter to take it from the Tesla charger to the just more generic electric car charger. When you get to a charging station, all that you need to do is unlock and open the charging gate. You can do that on the touch screen here. Since we have it plugged in, it already shows as open. But from there, you simply will expose the port. You insert the adapter or the regular Tesla charger, and from there you plug it in. Now, there's a little bit of difference of whether you're going to need to pay or whether it's free, whether you need somebody to enable it for you at your hotel or whether it works automatically. You're kind of going to have to feel out your specific situation in order to make that work. But overall, it more or less is plug and play. Open it up, plug it in, let it charge. One other consideration when it comes to charging is the fact that your driving style will have a big impact. So we've talked about during the driving segment, regenerative braking. So that will give you that additional charge, but also if you drive really aggressively, you're going to use your battery much quicker. So make sure you're thinking about your driving mode, whether it's that normal or that chill mode, your regenerative braking, whether you're using standard or low. Those sorts of things will influence how many miles you can get on a charge. And even though it says 52 miles, you might drain through that more quickly, or you might make that last. So that's something you're going to have to keep in mind and see how that goes before you try and go on a very aggressive long trip, not knowing how long you're going to be able to drive for. So that's really it. All you got to do now is don't lock your key in the car, and you're off to your Maui adventures in your awesome Tesla Model 3. So remember, as I always say, if you enjoy what you see, the likes are free. The subs don't cost anything either. Have a great trip, and I'll see you later.
In 500 feet, turn right onto P-Island Highway. Now turn right onto P-Island Highway.